Thank you guys so much for joining today. I'm Nijing Guo. I am the Director of Student Engagement here at Baret Scholars. And, I've been in the education field for over a decade now, and I've done things like writing a children's book and doing teacher training and sat at a trustee board in coding boot camps for Sub-Saharan Africa. But this is by far the most exciting endeavor that I've joined so far. And we're putting together a team that is embarking on a year of education that is, I think, the best that I've ever seen out there. That is focused on global education, focused on global citizen education, and also self-exploration. And I wanted to give a little brief overview of our guest that is joining today, who's Ronan McRoy. He is our fellow this year, who is accompanying our students on this journey. And I'm so excited that he is joining us today. Ronan, you can give a quick intro for yourself as well. It's very interesting. A little fun fact, me and Ronan's life kind of flipped ways in terms of our education experience. I did my undergrad at UCLA and I did my master's at Oxford. And Ronan did the opposite, where he did his undergrad at Oxford and his master's at UCLA. But you
Yep.
can tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, well, wonderful to meet you all. I'm absolutely delighted to be a fellow this year, and hopefully I can shed some light on what my job has been like and what awaits the amazing cohorts of students joining us this year. Um, I was born and raised in Rome. My parents are Irish and English. I went to an international school. I know that quite a number of students there they have on the Baret program had the same kind of educational experience. They were surrounded by friends and teachers from all over the world. I lived in Rome until I was about 18. Then I went to Oxford. I studied literature and linguistics at Oxford. But I was always in love with film, theatre, art, literature. I wanted to be a musician, but I wasn't quite good enough. But I felt that film was an amazing way to kind of bring together all of these disciplines, to somehow be involved with them all, and so I pursued a graduate film degree at UCLA. I enjoyed it immensely. It was incredible to be surrounded by a group of people who were also very, very passionate about what I was passionate about. When I graduated, um, I worked for a number of years in development, film development, which basically meant that I was reading other people's scripts and honing my ability to kind of deliver coherent feedback and hopefully valuable feedback. And I started writing around the same time. I decided that I would take a crack at it. And yeah, the first script that I wrote was bought and made by Fox Studios. So I had that experience, the experience of going through, of having your film dismantled and put back together in a dysfunctional manner by a large corporation. But it was incredibly interesting. I then pursued music videos, sort of low budget commercials, and started writing films that were maybe less big in scope, but a little bit more personal, and films that I had a little bit more control over. I have one that hopefully will go into production in March of this coming March, and the director is an Indian director called Tarsem Singh. Um, at any rate, I was writing when I heard about the opportunity to be a fellow, and I felt that um, it was an opportunity that I simply couldn't turn down. Um, I mainly because there was a level of kind of uncertainty around it. I knew that it would open my mind as well as open the students' minds in ways that could not be predicted. And it also seemed like an incredible opportunity to see the whole world. Um, I started 4 or 5 months ago. Started working for Baret 4 or 5 months ago, and the team that they've assembled is very, very inspiring. And the people are all incredibly nice. And the students who are part of this first cohort seem to share something of the DNA of the the founders and the Barre staff. And I think it might be a heightened curiosity, a desire to kind of expand one's horizons and do so in a very open and joyful way. So I'm really looking forward to doing it, to kind of setting off on the journey. And I'm really looking forward to sort of describing a little bit more about how fellowships work, because I think they form such an important part of the whole process.
Thank you so much for that intro, and what a life journey as well. I feel like you've lived many lives before coming to Baret as a fellow. Speaking of fellowships, speaking of Baret, I thought we would jump in on a quick introduction of Baret. I know many of you are familiar with the program, but just to give an overview for some of those that are a little bit new to Baret. So we are in our third year of Baret. We have a team of 35 staff members that are joining us from all across the world. I think in total, we speak a combination of 17 different languages across all of our staff members. And we are scattered throughout all these locations that you see on this map today. And we're graduates of Oxford and Harvard, Cambridge, Yale, MIT, and we just came here together to try and create a program that was for the future, that were for skills for the future, that were for citizens of the future, for self-exploration and for development. And this is something that we've either gained in our professional lives or our career, or something that we wish we had during this nexus or during this sweet spot between kind of transitioning into adulthood that we wish we had back in the day. And the whole program, it spans across 7 different regions, 5 different continents around the world. We start off in North America and we journey across the world through Latin America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, South Asia, East Asia. And for each region, we spend 1 month's time. And this 1 month block is split into 2 main parts. One is in the home-based cities, which is the red kind of central dot that you see in each of the regions. And the second part of it is fellowships. So these are 10-day deep educational programs that delve into one specific topic, and it's guided by a guiding question. And just to break the program up into a couple of components and talk about what exactly we do during our time at Baret, I would say there are 6 main components of the program. I'm going to highlight 3 today. One of them would be our morning programs. So think of the morning program as a traveling TED Talk or a masterclass on the move. Students will be taking part in 4 morning programs a week over the span of 20 days. So these are over the span of 3 weeks, students get to meet 36 really incredible people. I was on a call earlier in the day with a student that will be joining this year, and I was like, when you go to the morning programs, remember to be shameless, to ask for everyone's contacts, to talk to everyone, because these are people that you want to know for the rest of your life. It's including people like the editor of in-chief of Elle magazine, the author of and the CEO of the Tribeca Film Festival, Andrew Essex, and they come from all different walks of life. Some of them are cinematographers, some of them are DJs or musicians, some of them are founders and principal investors of some of the major VCs in North America. Really incredible people that students get to meet. And apart from the morning programs in the afternoons, I wanted to give you guys a little sneak peek on what our students see on the back end. So this is the official Baret app. They use this for basically a lot of their comms. checking out their morning programs, their fellowship selections, afternoon options, things like that. They talk to their fellows on here. But I wanted to kind of give you guys a little taster of what they see in their afternoon as well. So these are the morning programs occupy the mornings. In the afternoons, students get an array of classes that they can choose from. This would include things like an entrepreneurial class called Starting Things. It would include STEM application in the 21st century, that is kind of teasing apart STEM beyond the theoretical field, something quite different than what you would get at a, I don't know, Physics 101 class in university. It would include, for example, seminars in domain that covers innovation, creativity, nature, and politics. And this is specific to each region, each city or metropolitan that they go to. So imagine innovation in Sao Paulo. We will cover things like navigating the digital frontier and understanding online banking and how it revolutionized Brazil. So these are all, think of them as elective courses in the afternoon. We have French classes for the first semester. The second semester is Mandarin classes. And one of the most popular afternoon courses this year is actually our career and college counseling sessions that is led by our fellow Revlin, who used to be she was in one of the best high schools in Brazil doing college counseling and career counseling. And she created and led the college counseling, career counseling arm in that high school. And she will be leading the session. A lot of our students come to us in this kind of adjustment period as well as they're thinking about applying to college or reapplying to college or even a career exploration as well. So I guess this is one of the reasons why it was one of the most popular ones. And the third element that I wanted to highlight would also be the fellowships, which Ronan will be talking a little bit more in depth today. Once students finish their time in their home-based cities, for example, if we're looking at North America, they finish their 20 days in New York, then they set out into different fellowships and they break up into smaller groups and start exploring a specific topic. And for North America, there was a myriad of different choices that they could select from. And one of them is Ronan's fellowship, Los Angeles, David Lynch, or La La Land. And they could also explore things like understanding jazz and soul in the South, in New Orleans. They can think about politics in Washington, D.C. They can think about how the legal system works in New York. One of our fellows, she's also a practicing lawyer who has started her own firm in Africa. This goes with all of our other fellowships as well. In South America, you have a selection of different fellowships. In Europe, you have a lot of different choices from biomed to music to politics to culture. It really is and before I pass this on to Ronan to talk about his fellowship and his design process, I also wanted to bring you through our traveling team as well. So our dean and associate dean, they were formal faculty at Harvard, at MIT, and at UC Berkeley. And the traveling cohort also includes Dr. Erica Pritchett, who is our chief medical officer, Tom Matthews, who used to be our Secret Service, and he will be serving as our chief security officer. And of course, our wonderful fellows that come from all around the world and from all sorts of disciplines. And one of them is our wonderful Ronan. That I would pass it on to you if you could kind of bring us through a little bit on how you concocted your fellowships, especially the LA one. What was the thinking behind it? And if you could give us a little bit more context on that.
Well, the fellowships are an intriguing opportunity to visit somewhere away from the home city. In the United States, the home city will of course be New York, but different groups will then be venturing to different states, and a fellowship is really organized around what Baret calls a guiding principle or a guiding question. And in the case of LA, I didn't simply want the fellowship to be a celebration of how cool Los Angeles is and how, it's the epicenter of film. Everybody knows that it is. And I spent 15 years working in film. I wanted to get the scholars to maybe understand that LA is maybe a microcosm of the US in general. There is, there are good aspects to it and there are less good aspects to it. The guiding question that we came up with was, how do the contrasting narratives of Hollywood's glamour and its darker underbelly shape our understanding of filmmaking and the American dream? What we're going to be doing is traveling really from spending quite a lot of time in the glitzy, more sunny, more glamorous West Side, and slowly we'll be moving to the east side of LA. And my hope is that along the way, I can introduce the scholars to people who work in the film industry, people who I know and have worked with for years. I could bring them to visit UCLA Film School, for example. We can go to visit a studio. We can go to visit the Sony prop shop, places like that, so that they become intimately sort of infused with a sense of what the filmmaking spirit in LA is. But I also want to give them a sense that there is a darker side to the city. There is a certain amount of homelessness, there's crime, there are, as many people realize their dreams, but dreams are also broken in LA. And so we will be making short documentaries as we venture from the west side to the east side, that hopefully reflect this duality, the fact that LA appears to be one thing on the surface, and it is that, but there is also a deeper reality to the city, and one that fewer people are aware of.
Hmm. That's really fascinating. I think this was one of the fellowships that, if there ever were a fellowship envy, this would definitely be one of them. Spending a couple of years in LA myself, I was telling Ronan how I wish I saw LA through his lens, and it's really fascinating. Um, could you bring us through, as I know that the journey is kind of from the West LA to East LA journey. Would you be able to bring us through kind of the West LA portion, some of the sample days that I have on the screen? What would that look like for
Yeah.
hours?
So we'll be starting out in on the west side in Venice, and Venice really is known as a hyper relaxed, laid back, quite creative area. Sun-kissed, we're right by the sea. And we'll be touring the Venice canals, but then we'll also be going to Santa Monica, seeing landmarks that are generally associated with Los Angeles. In some ways, the La La Land experience that people imagine they will have going to Los Angeles. So in some ways, the beginning of the trip will reinforce some of the stereotypes that people share, but by the end of the trip, those stereotypes may seem less true or slightly less representative of a city that is, I think, a lot deeper and a lot more interesting than it often gets credit for.
Hmm. Hmm. That's
Hmm.
really fascinating.
Um, but so we will begin, and it was consciously built this way. We will begin in an area of LA that reinforces the stereotypes. But then, as we move closer to the east, we will be exploring the world of film because it's a world that I'm familiar with. So we will be going to UCLA Film School. We will be touring. UCLA Film School. We'll have a workshop, film workshop with students who are currently enrolled. We'll take a look at Westwood Village that Westwood Village still has some of the most beautiful and really iconic cinemas in all of the US. Whenever you see a premiere of a film in on television, you're likely seeing the outside of one of two cinemas in Westwood. But as we move closer to Hollywood, as we move closer to the east side of Los Angeles, we will start to uncover maybe a less idealized picture of LA, but we'll also discover the world of indie filmmaking and the world of independent cinema that is really based more on the east side than it is on the west side. So we'll be going to areas like Los Feliz. Quentin Tarantino just bought a famous cinema, the Vista Theater in Los Feliz. I'll be hosting seminars with some friends who have had films at the Toronto Film Festival and at Cannes, and actors who have been working both in the studio system and outside the studio system, and they will be able to give scholars just a feel for how different those two worlds are and what it is to be a filmmaker today in a landscape, cinematic landscape that has changed so much in the last 10 years. Um, we'll end the fellowship again in Los Feliz, where we'll visit Griffith Park and quite literally see the entire city from above. And hopefully that will be an interesting way to kind of synthesize our thoughts to gain some kind of perspective on LA, the LA that we thought we were going to visit, and the LA that we ended up visiting. It's a city that I think is a lot deeper, a lot more interesting, and a lot more nuanced than it gets credit for in the media. And so I'm going to do my utmost to open that reality to the people who are on the fellowship.
That's so fascinating. And thank you so much for bringing us through kind of that journey. It's very funny because I remember arriving LA for university for the first time and going from LAX to UCLA. It was the opposite. And I remember seeing all the bumpy roads and like the kind of darker side, quote unquote, of LA and being like, this does not look like what it looks like in the movies at all. And
Yeah. And
yeah,
yet those places can end up being the places that you find most endearing, but it can take
yeah,
they can take a while, right?
yeah.
And hopefully the scholars who are on the fellowship get a taste of that, uh, very quickly.
Yes, I completely agree. I'm really curious about the documentary making during this process with the
Yeah.
scholars. Can you
Uh,
tell us a little bit?
yeah, so I see that Anit has a question. Will the students be given an opportunity to see how the actual movies or shooting is done, or just a tour? And I think that kind of ties into what we'll be doing. I went to graduate school at UCLA for filmmaking, and so I intend to help the students create a documentary during the fellowship. So there'll be that, but at the same time, I'm organizing a workshop with current UCLA Film School students to kind of give people a very swift boot camp in how to shoot a scene. We'll also be looking at um, the facilities that UCLA have. So the sound stages, the post-production rooms, the scoring room, and get a little bit more of an insight into that. We'll also be visiting a studio, but that will most likely be more of a tour and less of a hands-on experience of filmmaking per se. Um,
So exciting. Very, very cool. Thank you for that little brief tidbit. I think I didn't even know that UCLA had a soundstage production site. Obviously it would,
mm,
but I didn't even think of that. That's very cool to know.
yeah.
And so we covered a little bit about the LA fellowship, and this is where you've spent around a decade, right? In
Mhm.
LA. And
Yeah.
I'd love to kind of shift gears to talk about a new kind of part of the world that we're exploring uh, in
Mm.
Rio Negro. And could you tell me a little bit more about how you thought of this guiding question and what are some of the things that you would hope students start to kind of unpackage here?
Mm. Well, I've always been fascinated by the Amazon. Um, I think I was profoundly influenced or marked by a film that I saw many years ago called Fitzcarraldo. And even though that takes place in Peru, I think a lot of the same themes that run through that film are applicable to Manaus and to the Brazilian Amazon. Um, and that film is all about the contrasts between the indigenous cultures and people present in the Amazon and the colonized people who Europeans who colonized it and who exploited it for its natural resources, and in doing so displaced um, and really terrorized in some cases the indigenous population. Um, Manaus is somewhere that I've always been interested in because it has a very imposing opera house that was built in the late 1800s, and it was built on the back of the rubber boom. So the wealthy European businessmen were coming to the Amazon and basically employing the indigenous peoples, but paying them very little and becoming extravagantly wealthy um, uh, by through rubber. And the European there was a European gentleman who who funded the building of this opera house. And so it really stands as a testament to the rubber boom in the Amazon, to the colonization of areas of the Amazon. And and so we're going to take a couple of days to understand the history of Manaus. But then we're going to contrast that colonial history with the uh, indigenous cultures of the Amazon, in particular the Baret people. And we're going to do this through the eyes of Saru Mundurukus, who, as you can see, is the owner of a really quite incredible company. And his whole calling in life has been to show people, particularly young people, the Amazon that people never see. And he is the only indigenous Amazonian who runs a company of this sort. He grew up in the Amazon. He left when he was a teenager in order to find work in Manaus. He did find work in Manaus, and he ended up then deciding, after he had worked in the city for a number of years, to return and to set up a company that would really reveal the staggering beauty of the Amazon to people who might only get a very superficial glimpse of it. And I think this will be a really life-changing experience. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
wonderful. That's very
yeah.
cool. And just hearing about Saru's story and the way that he thinks about expeditions through the Amazon is really incredible as well. I'm very
Mhm.
curious, just hearing about you talk about it. Could you flesh out a little bit what the day-to-day might look like? This is
Mm.
the fellowship that when we heard sleeping on a boat, we were like, hold on, wait a minute. Tell us more.
Mhm.
Could you
Mhm.
give us a little context about what that would look like?
Yeah, well, the good thing about this trip is Saro has done it for years and years. And the itinerary that Saro takes the people who are lucky enough to go on it um, um, is has been written up in newspapers in the UK. It's been spoken about on the TV in the US. It's something just a once in a lifetime opportunity. Um, So the boat that the idea of going up the Amazon on a boat sounds very potentially precarious. It's not. The boat that we will be going on is quite luxurious. We will be sleeping on hammocks on the deck, but there will be there will be hammocks provided for everybody. There will be life vests. There will be an entire crew dedicated not only to making sure that we're comfortable and safe, but also to cooking and cleaning for us, and making sure that the whole experience is as um, uh, comfortable and enjoyable as possible. Because I think what Saru wants is for us um, to observe, to have the time to observe things that we wouldn't otherwise uh, ever see. For example, that he's going to bring us to an area where there are pink dolphins, um, pink river dolphins, highly rare. We will. He enjoys exotic fishing off the side of the boat. He will take us on a tour to sort of hunt wild caiman. Um, but at the same time, there will also be a cultural component to it. We will get to visit and talk to the Baret people, um, and with an with a particular emphasis on uh, understanding how important it is to preserve their culture and to preserve the environment that supports that culture. And So we will meet certain leaders from the village of Tres Unidos. And then we will also talk to Saro that evening about his thoughts regarding environmental preservation, cultural preservation, the link between those two, and um, and how vital he uh, feels it is for the survival of a world that could otherwise be lost.
Hmm.
Mm.
That's so wonderful. That's very amazing to hear because I come from an island that most of
Mm.
the expeditions and the tourism industry is run by people that are non-Indigenous. And uh, talking to a close family member that is Indigenous to the island, the way that you think about cultural preservation, the way that you think about uh, the native culture is from such a different lens. And uh, it's great that we're doing this with Sorrow, and it sounds really
Najing, that's what I'm hoping and I think that's what he hopes too, that
wonderful.
it will be that he will enable people to see the uh, the area that he grew up in through his eyes,
Yeah,
through those kind of through the eyes of somebody who has a certain sensitivity and unique kind of relationship with it.
I agree. I agree. I feel like also one thing to highlight about these fellowships is these reflection days or these end days For LA, it was Rap Day. For this specific fellowship, what are you hoping on the last day for these students? What do you hope they get out of it, or what do you hope they take from this?
I don't know. I mean, I think that will be a very personal experience for everybody who goes on such a trip. I imagine that there will be some kind of something quite alluring about visiting old Manaus, colonial Manaus, about visiting the opera house, the grandeur of the opera house. Um, but I think maybe through going 250 kilometers up the Rio Negro, visiting cultures that are somehow, well, learning the customs of people who live so differently to us, realizing that they are maybe in a somewhat precarious position. I imagine returning to Manaus, we may see that city through slightly different eyes. It may recontextualize the way that we perceive the beauty and the grandeur of a place like the Opera House. We may see it. I wouldn't want to put thoughts into the
Yeah.
minds of the scholars, but I'm sure there will be a certain reframing of our perceptions, initial perceptions. And I think that really is the key to every guiding question. I think it's to constantly uh, uh, pay attention to an idea, a question that might slowly reframe or question the assumptions that we had of a place and other people at the beginning, and maybe having a relationship with that question will change our perceptions of the place and the people by the end.
Hmm. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Um, Thank you so much for covering the fellowship side, and I have no doubt that this is life-changing for the fellows that join your fellowship, join some of our other amazing fellowships across as well. Uh, for people that are joining or that are listening in to the recording, we'll have a couple of sessions that will cover some of the other fellowships, so tune in for that as well. I feel like for Baret, I want to leave some time for Q&A as well, but it really is an opportunity that we want you to explore yourself, explore the world, to, like Ronan said, challenge the assumptions that you might have of yourself or even the world, and build that network of friends, not just through your peers, through the people that you meet on your fellowships, on your morning programs. I think it does open so many more doors to a much wider world. But I wanted to leave some time for Q&A as well before I go into any sort of application details. Does anyone have any questions that you would like to pose to the group? If there are none, you can always email me. I know that you guys have probably received an email or two from me, so feel free to email me here. There's one question that, yes, feel free to share your questions in the chat as well. Aman is asking, when do the applications start? It has started right now, Aman. So feel free to go on our website, and there is an application link as well. And I'm sure there's an application link in one of my emails to you. But the quickest way to find it is on the website. There's an apply now button right there. So my suggestion is always apply earlier rather than later. That's just how most education programs admission cycles go as well. It would show, your interest to the program. We'll be able to review your application a little bit earlier. So I would always suggest earlier application rather than later. And Kid, feel free to type out your question as well, or unmute your mic and ask it, however you prefer.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Go ahead, go ahead.
I would like to ask you, Ronan sir, according to your own experiences, like you have traveled so many countries around the world. So, what would your suggestion or advice to the people who have never done this type of experience before, especially the program in general, a kind of an adventure thing for people like who have never been outside of India. So how can they make most of this program or specifically this fellowship?
So, how can we make most of the program and the fellowship? Would you like to give that a stab, Bryn?
Yeah. Ankit, did you mean are you referring to the LA fellowship or the Amazon fellowship or both?
You can say both, sir.
Okay. Look, I would say there are with whenever we plan a fellowship, there's a recommended reading list, and it's obviously not compulsory, or a viewing list. And the books are chosen um uh to sort of get scholars to start thinking about different aspects of the place that they're going to see. I remember, for example, I went to I went to Australia many years ago, and I regret that experience a little bit because I hadn't read enough about the places that I was going to visit. Um, I um I wish I wish I knew more about Aboriginal culture. I wish I had watched certain films and read books that I read after the fact. And so yeah, Baret provides students with uh films and books that they can watch in order to really go into the experience already curious about certain aspects of the place. Um, yeah, and kid, I mean, also, I think there's a an effort being made on the part of the deans and on the part of the Baret team to pair up uh, fellows with scholars, fellows who have a natural curiosity about the place that they're visiting or have had an experience of that place and want to share what they find so fascinating about it. So, some of it is on us to kind of tease out what is interesting in the place that we're bringing you to. Part of it is also, doing a little bit of reading, a little bit of watching beforehand, just to pique that curiosity and make sure that you get the most out of it. Yeah, I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Thank you so much, sir.
You got it.
Thanks so much, Ronan. And we're nearly out of time. And thank you all so much for joining today and for listening in. We have another webinar coming up next week as well, specifically for students that are thinking about taking this year during university and how to deal with kind of taking a gap year, policies around that. If you're an international student, how do visas work around that for your country? Some of the nitty-gritty details about that. So tune in for that. For the week after, we have a webinar series specifically around applications as well and how to create a strong application profile for Baret. So if you're interested in that, feel free to tune in. We also have an opportunity to meet everyone in person. So you can meet Ronan in person, you can meet the traveling team in person. If you are in or close to some of our home-based cities. So there's a QR code on the screen right there. So if you scan that, you can see if any of our Baret in Town or open day events apply to you. And Aman, thank you so much for your question. I think maybe I can email you on the selection of that. And thanks so much for posting that. Thank you guys all so much for joining.